Hello darling one, and welcome to my channel. I am so glad that you are here today because today we have a lot to cover. We are going to be talking books, we are going to be talking perfume, and I even have a little spooky craft for us to work on together with a little bit of sewing. As per usual, this will probably wind up being a long, meandering video of randomness. So if that sounds good to you, let's jump right in. So, first things first, I have somebody very special that I would love to introduce you to. This is Scooter. Isn't she sweet? She is such a precious little angel baby. So if you'll remember back in September, I found a little black kitten huddled up at the base of a tree in our local park. And we brought him home and named him Orlok. And we love him so freaking much. This little kitten that I just showed you, Scooter, she was also found at that same park, wandering around all alone. And so, of course, we couldn't just leave her there. So, actually, I found it was on the 4th of July, and there were a lot of people coming and going from the park that day. So I thought for sure somebody would scoop her up, but nobody did. And so hours later, I went back for another walk, and this time she was up in a tree, very distressed. And so my husband climbed up the tree and got her down, and then we took her home and we brought her to a vet to get her checked out. And she is such a little sweetheart kitten. We just adore her. But unfortunately, we can't keep her because, I mean, you gotta set a limit on your cats, you know? You can't just have all the cats. And so we reached out to my brother, and luckily he was in the market for a kitten. So she will be going to stay with my brother. So we are super relieved about that she is going to have a good home where she's going to be super loved and super cared for. So the other day, I came up with a game. It's a little game I like to call vampires. And the way you play is you go for a walk. And when you're out on this walk, you pretend you're a vampire. So the rules are that when you're in the shade, you can walk at your normal pace. But once you come out of the shade and into the sun, you have to walk as fast as you can without running, as fast as you can until you get into the shade again. And then you walk at your normal pace again. And my thought is, like, when you're in the sun, suddenly, like, you're either a sparkly vampire and you just don't want people to see that you're sparkling, and so you have to walk as fast as you can in order to get into the shade again, or you're one of those old school vampires where you're going to be burned to a crisp if you're out in the sunlight, so you have to walk as fast as you can. Anyways, I really wanted to share that with you. And then I have other versions too, like there's one that's called Scary Vampires, and that one is like if you're more of a sun witch or whatever, that so for Scary Vampires, the way you would play is the reverse, essentially. So when you're in the sunlight, you walk at your normal pace, but then once you hit the shade, you have to walk super fast because there's scary vampires there and they're gonna get you. And that's how you play Scary Vampires. And then my other version is Vampires 2, and the way you play that is essentially you play vampires but with 2 people. Or more. You could play with more people than that. But I will admit that when you play it, you feel like you look a little insane to all the people around you that are like walking by. But you know, who cares about all that? In the following segment, I discuss some perfumes that I purchased recently. I must stress that this was not sponsored. This is not a promotion in any way. It is simply something that I bought that makes me genuinely happy, and I wanted to talk about it. So the next thing that I wanted to talk to you about is actually a recent purchase that I made. I decided to treat myself to some autumn-inspired perfumes by my favorite perfume shop. And that shop is Sugar and Spite. It is woman-owned and it has been around since 2012. The owner has been doing this for a very long time, and she is so talented when it comes to developing her products. There are so many reasons why I return to her shop time and time again, and one of those reasons is that she really creates an atmosphere around her scents. Like some people, like they'll open up, you know, a spooky perfume shop or whatever, and they'll create a scent and then just think of, like, they'll think of a name that just sounds spooky, but the scent has nothing to do with that name. And that is one of those things that just really gets under my skin. Maybe that sounds weird, but like the way that she creates a scent, it's like the name and the scent, they always go together. And then not only that, but she creates her own like labels and artwork for her products. And she goes above and beyond to create this whole experience surrounding your purchase. So I wanted to share some of the things that I got from there with you today. I'm not going to share everything, but I am going to share with you the standouts. Honestly, I've never gotten anything from her shop that I did not like, but these are the ones that I loved the most. Let's just put it that way. So the first thing that I'm going to share with you is actually a product that I have never purchased from her before, and that is called Night Shift Nourishing Body Oil. This is what it looks like. And this stuff is freaking amazing. So the scent on this is incense, pomegranate, fig, and clove. And I would say that it doesn't smell like a witch shop incense smell. It smells more like a temple incense smell. So it feels more like ancient. It's got like more of an ancient incense smell to it, if that makes sense. I will say that the oil itself, it goes on real smooth and it's not greasy at all. Like it really absorbs into your skin. I am super happy with this product. I kind of want to try all of the other ones now because this one is so good. I love it. I love it. I picked up a number of samples because I wasn't sure which ones I would like, and before I make a bigger purchase, I want to make sure, right? So I wanted to share those with you, the ones that really stood out to me. One that I really, really love is Funeral Biscuits. It smells like vanilla mint cookies. Like it actually smells like it could be a cookie, you know, but it smells really, really good. I love it. It smells great on the dry down. My husband and I joke around that like this is maybe what like corpses eat when they're inside their caskets. Funeral biscuits. Either that or my husband has this great idea of like when you die that like maybe at your wake, when you're laying in your coffin, you have like a plate with like funeral biscuits on top. So when people come to pay their respects to you, they can like reach in and grab a biscuit off your dead body. Now, If you want to smell like a new age witch shop, I would highly recommend this one, Black Mamba. This one smells like every new age witch shop that I have ever been in. It's got this sort of like incensey, like mystical smell to it. I highly recommend this one if you like that scent. So I have two here that, these were my shockers. These were the ones that surprised me. One of them I actually bought as a sample, and the other one was a free sample that she put into my package, which was super thoughtful. I didn't pick up a sample of it because I didn't think I would like it, but it turned out to be one of my favorites of all of them. So I'm glad she did that. So one of the samples that I purchased that did stand out to me and surprised me, because I liked some of the notes that were in the description, but some of the notes I wasn't so sure about. But oh man, it smells so good. And that is called Witch House. I mean, part of me was like, of course I've got to buy the sample of Witch House, right? But this one, I don't know how to describe it. It's a sweet scent, but it's kind of musky. It almost smells florally, but not quite. I would say more musk than floral, but I don't even know that there's any floral in this one. But that's kind of what I'm picking up from it. But yeah, it smells really good. So that one surprised me. The other one that super duper surprised me was Spooky Scary Skeletons. This one was the one that she put in as a free sample that I hadn't intended to buy because I wasn't so sure. I mean, praline is in it, and I was like, I'm not really sure if I want like a nutty. But this smells so incredible. I don't even know how to describe it. It's a little bit incense. It's a little bit like sweet. It smells really good on the dry down, and my husband loves this one, and he doesn't usually comment on my perfumes. He usually doesn't like my perfumes that I pick out, but he likes this one. That one was a surprise. I really loved it. Spooky Scary Skeletons. And now for a couple of like full-sized oil roll-ons that I purchased. I have scents that I have purchased from her before. I usually go all out when she has like a Halloween release. This time I tried a bunch of ones that I've never tried before. With these larger roll-on bottles, I really was kind of taking a gamble, but I thought I would like them. And luckily I do. I love them. So the first one I'm going to tell you about is called Spider Baby. But look at this beautiful design. She designs these things. And also the packaging is always really beautiful. I mean, it feels like you're getting a Halloween package. She does a great job. But anyways, I wanted to read you the description of the Spider Baby perfume so you can understand why I chose it. Okay, so here's the description for Spider Baby. Pumpkin cider, nutmeg, almond paste, cookie butter, fresh rolled oats. And I will tell you, this really does smell like an autumn sweet baked treat. It is so good. I love this one so much. But the absolute banger of a scent that was in this package was, and this is now my all-time favorite scent ever. I love it so much. I'm probably gonna get a larger bottle of it because I love it so much, and that is called Wolf Bite. This one, it blew my mind. It really did. I knew I would like it. Like, I thought that I would like it, but wow. Let me give you the scent description. Hang on. Wolf Bite. Fiery wood, cookie butter, browned butter, dark chocolate. You know what really sold me on this one was the fiery wood and the dark chocolate. And you know, some chocolate scents that you get, they smell kind of funky, quite honestly. Like they almost smell like feet. Does that make sense to anybody out there? But this one, that firewood, she takes scents that could easily be juvenile scents, and she makes them into these complex, like grown-up goth girl scents. She is so good at that. Honestly, I think she's the best out there. Hands down, best out there when it comes to making spooky girl perfumes. She is the best. So, if you're ever wondering maybe what Corpsey Lou smells like, she is a little bit night shift, and she is a little bit wolf bite. Now, I will tell you, Lisa, the owner of Sugar and Spite, we are actually friends, and we became friends because I was such a fan. I was such a fan of her work, quite honestly, because she is an absolute artist. She's an artist when it comes to perfume. She is an artist when it comes to design, in terms of, like, you know, label design. She is also just a straight up artist, and she's just all around talented. She sent me a surprise. She is actually preparing for a spooky goth market in Oregon that's coming up in August, I believe. So she's been working on some other things outside of the perfume world, and she sent me this thing that she made, and I have to show you. Look at this. Look at this beautiful thing. This is a tote bag, and it is, it's patchwork. Look how cool this is. Look at her eye for design. You know, all of the different patterns that she selected. I mean, I have to tell you guys, it is not easy to do patchwork. It is not easy to do that kind of thing, because you really have to think about, like, is this going to go with that? Is that going to go with this? And she did it so well on the, and this is the back of the bag, the bottom, and here's the inside. We've got this sweet ghost pattern, and then there are 2 pockets with kitty cats in there. I love it so much. And also look at how well it's sewn. Like, can you see how well it's sewn? It really blew my mind. Really, really quality work. So anyways, I had to share that with you. Look at these owls. Look at them. I love it so much. I actually used it the other day when I went to the coffee shop. I brought a book with me, and this, I love it. I love it so much, and thank you so much, Lisa. I really appreciate it, if you're watching this. So I have an update on my bloomers from a couple episodes back. Remember we made bloomers together? Well, I have been wearing them a lot, and I love them, and I get compliments on them every time I wear them. But I felt like they needed a little something. They needed pockets. So I added some spooky pockets. We've got a pocket with skulls. And also, oop, get back in there. Get in there. And then also the other pocket has bats. Don't know if you can see them. And then the other thing that I added to the bloomers is I put a label, a Forever Fall label on my bloomers, because honestly, with bloomers, it's hard to tell which side's the back and which side's the front. So I kept putting them on backwards. I mean, when you put them on backwards, you know they're on backwards. They feel weird. But I kept doing it, and so I was like, you know what? I need a little something that's going to point me in the right direction of like knowing which way to put these on. So yes. Anyways, I love them. They are fantastic, and because they're made out of bed sheets, I can just throw them in the wash as per usual and dry them as per usual. Like, I don't have to do anything fancy like hand wash and then like hang them up to dry. I can just, you know, be lazy about it. So all right, and now it's time to talk books. These books are not in any particular order. I have 4 that I'll be discussing today, plus 1 honorable mention. So let's jump right in. So the first book I'm going to discuss is A Sorceress Comes to Call by the author T. Kingfisher. Now, this is the first book I've ever read by this author, and they are well known for being able to infuse a bit of humor into what would otherwise be like a spooky or creepy story. And so I thought, well, it's high time I read this author. So this is the one that I chose to start with. This book is essentially about what would happen if you took a narcissistic mother and gave her magnificent magical powers. She is basically an evil sorceress. And she has this daughter named Cordelia who is in her early teens. And she has controlled Cordelia her entire life using this magic. As a result, Cordelia has kind of grown up, become, you know, very timid. This evil sorceress has these ambitions, like big ambitions of, you know, money and power. And she sets her sights on this sort of wealthy gentleman and in an insidious way manages to get entrance into his house. But she wasn't counting on the fact that this gentleman would have a sister who also lives with him. And this sister kind of already picks up on the fact that while she doesn't realize that she's a sorceress, she does realize that she's not a good person and that she's also trying to manipulate her brother into possible marriage. And so she spends the entire story trying to thwart a marriage between the sorceress and her brother. And along the way, Cordelia becomes family to the sister, to the brother, and all of their acquaintances that pop up along the way. Did I like this book? I think I would like to try a different T. Kingfisher book. I think maybe I started off with the wrong one. And I don't know if it's a humor thing. I don't know if our humor doesn't match up, and maybe that's why I didn't really care for it. I didn't feel a strong connection to the characters. While they were well written, I just didn't connect with them. But I think overall, I just feel lukewarm about this book. So the next book I'm going to discuss is called My Darling Dreadful Thing by Johanna van Veen. And this was the first book that I've ever read by her, and I am going to devour her other books. I loved this one so much. It was such a great gothic ghost tale. It centers around a character named Ruse. When she is a child, she is sort of forced into doing seances with her abusive mother, and during one of these seances, she attracts what is called a spirit companion. And this spirit companion is so creepy, but at the same time, she's endearing. And it's such an interesting take on a ghost. So as Ruse gets older, her mother decides to have her run the seances. at this one particular seance, there is a wealthy widow who comes, and it is the first time that Ruse sees another ghost outside of her spirit companion. And the wealthy patron, her name is Agnes, she recognizes in Ruse that she has a gift. And so she invites her back to her estate with the premise of honing that gift. So she whisks her away to this Gothic crumbling mansion. And there is a lot of creepy and spooky stuff going on there. There are secrets, and Ruse wants to get to the bottom of these secrets. And the more she tries to interfere with these secrets, the more the creep factor ramps up in the house. And while all this is going on, Ruse and Agnes start to form a bond with each other. There's an attraction there, and it just gets stronger and more intense as the story unfolds. Something that I really loved about this book is that Johanna van Veen took a character who would normally be like this gentleman who is like mysterious and brooding, and she made that character a woman. And I thought that was really interesting, and it was very well done. And so you wind up with this sort of Jane Eyre dynamic where you have like the older, more like worldly individual, and then you have the younger, sort of inexperienced character, and they start to fall in love. And I really enjoyed that part of the story. I love a good Gothic romance, and this was an excellent Gothic romance. It was a great ghost story. It had atmosphere, it had seances, it had graveyards and creepy churches and dilapidated mansions and romance and ghosts and ghosts and ghosts and ghosts. There were ghosts everywhere. And in fact, my favorite character in this story was a spirit companion. But I don't want to give anything away, so I'm not going to get too much into that. But I will say that I highly recommend this book. It is an excellent ghost story. I loved it so much. So the next book that I'm going to discuss is called The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Now this book is known as sort of the OG dark academia book. That's not usually a genre that I go for. I find that most dark academia books are either very boring or they are, very juvenile with characters that I can't really relate to. So I don't usually go for that, but I've heard about this one time and time again, and so I gave it a try. Spoiler alert, this book does not have vampires in it. I thought it had vampires in it. I got about a third of the way into the book, and I was like, wait a minute, are there going to be vampires in this book? And so I looked it up, and no, there are no vampires in this one, which made me a little disappointed, but I kind of went into it blind. I don't know why I thought there were vampires in it. But anyways, this book I would consider kind of high literature. It was very, very well written, along the same lines as like if you're a fan of Circe or other Madeline Miller books like Song of Achilles. Just the writing style is, there were so many times that as I was reading this book, I thought to myself, how did she even come up with that? How did she even think of that way to describe a certain scene? Look who it is. The story follows a character named Richard Papin who grows up in California but feels kind of trapped, and he feels like he's sort of suffocating in the life that he's grown up in. And so he decides to apply at a very prestigious prestigious. You are a little brat. So he decides to apply at a very prestigious school in New England, and he gets in. And then once he's there, he finds out about this sort of exclusive classics program run by this sort of mysterious professor, and he has a little experience with classics, and so he manages to get into the program. It's so exclusive that there are only 5 other students in the class. And he has always kind of been an outsider, like where he grew up kind of poor, and he didn't really have a lot of friends. And so once he's in this sort of class, he's intrigued by all of these students. They come off as like very mysterious and very interesting, and he just wants to be a part of their group. And slowly they start to invite him into the fold. Now, on the very first page, so I'm not giving away any spoilers or anything, on the very first page, one of these students is murdered. So throughout the book, you start to find out like what led up to the murder, how the murder transpired, and then the aftermath of that murder, and how they all kind of cope with it. This book had all of the autumn vibes that I could have possibly wanted. There were chilly autumn days and nights. There were sport coats and sweaters and reading big tomes by firelight. It had all of the autumn vibes that you could possibly want. I loved it for the atmosphere. This is a long read. It doesn't look like it would be, but these pages are very thin and the print is actually quite small. But that's not to say it wasn't a page turner, which, because it was so well written, it really kept you on your toes. The characters just jumped off the page. They were so well developed and downright chilling at times. I definitely think this was a great book. I'm glad that I picked it up, even though there weren't vampires in it. But yeah, if you're looking for a book with all of the autumn vibes, I highly recommend this one. It's very good. So the next book I actually had on my shelf for a couple years. I bought it a couple years ago, and I just kind of set it aside until I was in the mood to read it. That book is How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. This one couldn't have been more timely for me in terms of when I picked it up to read it. I felt a very strong connection to this book for personal reasons, and it will always hold a very, very special place in my heart. It is a very scary ghost story. It is super scary, super creepy. There is a lot of gore, surprisingly, for a ghost story. It's about a woman named Louise who is a single mother, and she lives in California, but she's from, I think, Charlotte, North Carolina, and her parents die unexpectedly. And so she needs to travel back to Charlotte to work with her estranged brother to try to get the house ready to go on the market so they can sell it. That is the basic premise of the book, but there is a lot of horror that happens between these pages. Now, Grady Hendrix, this is my 4th book that I've read by him, and he is so much fun. Every book that I've ever read by him, it sort of like plays out like a movie. You could see it all happening on a screen. It's always funny and incredibly scary at the same time. I love Grady Hendrix. There are puppets in this book. There are dolls in this book, and they are all haunted and they are all terrifying. But I think at its center, this book is about grief. And actually, each chapter is one of the stages of grief. It is also about messy family relationships. I will say that the very last page hit me real hard. Like, I mean, it's almost like he read my soul and knew exactly how I was feeling, and he just wrote it down. And I am sure that I will return to this book time and time again. So I think that because of the timing that I read this book, and because it affected me so greatly, I think that it is now tied for my #1 Grady Hendrix books. Of the 4, it's tied for #1 with the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. So I think if you're looking for a ghost story that is creepy and completely insane with lots of humor in it, I would highly recommend How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. So the next thing is actually not a book, but a series of zines, and they are called What Tales Lie Within the Burial Vault. I found them on Etsy. They are from a seller named Lost Boy Leather. These were so much fun and absolutely worth every single penny. Each one has kind of a theme about it. These are the Halloween issues, so the stories, the articles inside are, you know, very much geared towards Halloween. This one was surprisingly, this one was my favorite, which it's not a Halloween one, but it's paranormal. Like this one was about, you know, ghosts, and the seller also writes these short stories inside them that are like Goosebumps adjacent, but also just the typography, the layout, there are ads. It's like, you know, different types of papers were used. Reading these is like being transported back to the 90s, I feel like. I highly recommend them. If you like nostalgic sort of just fun like magazines and stuff, I highly recommend the What Tales Lie Within the Burial Vault series by Lost Boy Leather on Etsy. Also, the person who makes these zines, really, you can tell that he's very passionate about Halloween, and as a Halloween enthusiast myself, that is something that I can get behind. So I support that. All right, so now we've come to the crafting part of the video. The craft that I have today is we are going to take this decent bag, decent backpack, and we're gonna make it better. We're gonna add a little spook to it. This I picked up for $4 at a local thrift store. It's very lightweight. It's almost like tracksuit material, and it feels a little bit padded. But the reason I picked it up is because I really wanted something that was lightweight, that I could take on walks, and that could easily be thrown into the wash without much fuss. And so this bag fit the bill. And also I kind of like the design on it. It's like periwinkle and flowers and leopard print. One of my favorite things. We are going to just kind of add to it, but I don't want to add so much that it's gonna like make it heavy and weighted down, but just enough to kind of rejuvenate it and make it more Corpsey Lou friendly. So let's get started. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm going to add a jack-o'-lantern up on the top part of this bag, because I want this sort of like focal point right up here. And to make the jack-o'-lantern, I'm going to use this thrifted plaid shirt. It's kind of like a pumpkin-y, like a faded pumpkin-y orange, which I think is gonna look really nice with that purple. First, I'm going to measure out how big I want the jack-o'-lantern to be on here. And then I'm gonna go ahead and cut out sort of like an oval shape. First, we're gonna measure this top flap, which is, it looks like it's about 8 inches. So I think I want to cut my jack-o'-lantern, the full size of the jack-o'-lantern, I want to cut it to 5.5 inches. out of this, and then I'm gonna sew a backing onto the jack-o'-lantern. So ultimately it's going to be 5 inches and not 5.5 inches, because I'm gonna come in 1/4 of an inch all the way around. From top to bottom, well actually we'll just go from here. It looks like it's 6 3/4, so maybe 4 inches, 4 to 4.5 inches in length. That's gonna be a nice well-rounded jack-o'-lantern. Okay. So I actually have like another project that I'm going to use this shirt for that's going to be super fun, which I'll do a video on in the future. Oh my god. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually cut from the sleeve so that I can leave most of the rest of this shirt behind. Okay, so I think we're going to do like 5.5 by 4.5 and see how that looks. Now that I've marked out where, you know, the width and the height of the jack-o'-lantern, I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of make an oval. And I'm using this kind of, it's like a, it's not a blue colored pencil, but it's like, it's almost like a, it's a pencil that's used specifically for like sewing. All right, so I've kind of drawn out my oval a little bit. I don't know if you can see it very well. There it is, you can see it. All right, so I've traced out my oval. I'm gonna go ahead and cut it out, and then I'm going to cut out a piece of the green fabric in the same size, and then we'll go from there. Now, I also grabbed some batting because I'm going to put it in between the layers so that it has kind of like a puffy look to it. And also so that when I sew on the features of the jack-o'-lantern, it'll have almost like a quilted look. As you'll see, the green piece, it's not a perfect oval. In fact, it's a little bit bigger than our orange piece, and that's okay because ultimately once I sew this together, then I can just cut around the edge and make it the same size. And next we will cut the features. I think I want kind of classic, so triangle eyes, triangle nose, and you know, the sort of angular mouth. So I'm just gonna randomly cut and not worry about how good it looks. So I've decided I'm going to draw the mouth instead of winging it. I'll just go ahead and cut that out, and I'm cutting right up on the line. So this is essentially what my jack-o'-lantern is going to look like. All right, so now that we have all of our jack-o'-lantern pieces cut out, almost, I mean, we're gonna add a stem also, but for now, let's go ahead and start sewing together the face. All right, we are at the sewing machine, and I'm going to show you the order in which I'm going to sew. So these are the pieces. I am sewing the orange to the green, right sides together, and then the batting is going to be behind the green, okay? So that when it's so that when it's all turned inside out, this batting will be inside the oval, okay? So just follow along, and if I'm not explaining this very well, all will be revealed. And also, before I start sewing around the edge, I wanted to let you know I'm gonna leave an opening at the top so that we can turn it inside out, because if you sew all the way around it, you're not gonna be able to do that. And I don't want too many frayed edges on this because I still want the bag to be able to just be tossed into the wash whenever I need to do that. Okay, so I've stitched this together. I've left maybe about 1.5 inches at the top opening. So I'm going to trim around the edge and then I'm going to turn it inside out. Here it is all trimmed up. There's a 1/4 inch going around. All right. So now we're going to take our, our little lint roller and get rid of some cat hair. Now I'm going to take some turning tubes, which this is a doll maker's best friend, by the way. So if you make dolls and they have arms and legs and things, you want to get yourself some turning tubes. Usually it comes in a set. Actually, it always comes in a set. 3 different size tubes and dowels or bars, whatever. So anyways, let's go ahead and stick that in there. So we're going to stick it in the top like that. So this dowel, it's kind of shaped like a chopstick, essentially, which this is great for like arms and legs, but I'm going to use the dull part because sometimes this pokey thing can like actually go through the fabric, and I mean, we're not dealing with small detail here, so I can get away with using the dull part. And this is how you do it. This is how you use the turning tube. Look at that. You see how it's like sticking in there? All right, so now I can take that off and we've got it turning inside out. And then I'm just going to use this to further turn inside out. Just kind of go around that edge. And here it is, our sweet little pumpkin. So now what I'm going to do is, before I add our features, I'm going to add a stem, and then I'm going to kind of create lines that kind of give it that sort of like quilted, like pumpkin look. For the stem, I'm going to take the leftover batting that I had and this sweet little scrap of fabric that I just have laying around, and I'm going to kind of make a little stem out of it. Again, I want to put it right side together, and then I'm going to put my batting on one side. Okay? Just going to come through with a straight stitch, just like I did with the jack-o'-lantern. Okay. There it is. So now I'm just going to use my turning tubes and turn it inside out. Ta-da! That was quick and easy. All right, so now I'm going to stick it inside my little jack-o'-lantern, and I'm just gonna stitch it across the top. I'm not, you know, I kind of want this jack-o'-lantern to look a little folky, like a little folk jack-o'-lantern. So I'm not too concerned about whether it looks perfect or not. Here it is. I mean, it looks a little messy. You can kind of see the green fabric at the top, but I don't really care. All right, let's do our lines around to kind of give it some dimension. So I'm gonna go down the center first. All right, this jack-o'-lantern looks insane. That's all right. But you get what I'm saying with like the quilted look to it. All right, so now I'm gonna add the features. I'm gonna come in with a zigzag stitch, and I've adjusted the tension so that it's really close together, like embroidery almost. Here it is with the mouth sewn on, and as you can see, it looks like it's kind of embroidered on. Okay, so now I'm gonna go ahead and stitch on the eyes and nose with the same technique. So here is our jack-o'-lantern. And I am going to go ahead and sew him onto the flap with, with a straight stitch right up on the edge. I'm not going to attach the stem because I kind of want it to stick out. First, we've got to open the flap, right? So I think what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and pin it down so it doesn't shift around because I want it right in the center if I can. And then I'll just go ahead and stitch that on down. We are all pinned on and we are ready to roll. All right, and now because Corpsey Lou is extra, we are going to add some more layers using some laces and trims. And we're going to decorate the bottom half of the bag. It seems to be getting a little dark in here, so I apologize about that. You know, you run out of daylight and this is what happens. But anyways, so what I'm gonna do first is I'm going to take this white lace trim and I'm going to pin this pink lace trim to either side of it so that once I pin that down, I'm going to stitch them together onto the bag. And the reason I'm pinning it first is so that I don't have a whole bunch of different lines, you know, because I could sew this together first on either side and then sew it to the bag. But honestly, I'm being really lazy and I'm just using black thread because I don't feel like switching it out. So that's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna pin this together and then stitch it and then, yeah, sew it right onto the bag. All right, so let me do that. I have pinned my laces together and then I pinned it at the top up by the zipper, okay? So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and stitch along the top and down. And when I get maybe about a ½ inch from the bottom, I'm gonna stop. Because what I'm gonna do is I'm going to cut this and then fold it under and stitch along the bottom and then bring it back up. Okay? So let's go ahead and do that. I'm taking this sort of shelf off of my sewing machine so that I can slip it right in just like this. Okay, do you see? It just goes right over. I have sewn on our lace up to a half, like there, I left a ½ inch on the bottom. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to trim this accordingly and then tuck it in and stitch it across. Okay, I have stitched on our laces to our bag. And you'll see down at the bottom, I just folded it under and stitched right along there. So now what I want to do, isn't this looking, it's looking cute, isn't it? So now what I want to do is I want to tone down this white with, of course, a leopard print strip. So I'm going to turn this inside out and kind of stitch along the top and stitch along the side, leaving an opening on the other end. And then we're going to use our turning tube, turn it inside out, and that way all of the edges are in, you know, like they're finished edges. And then we are going to sew it onto the center of the lace. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and sew this together and then we'll go from there. All right, so I have sewn along the edge. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna snip that corner. Do you see it up there? Just right there, I'm gonna snip that. Then we're gonna do a little rolling. Looks good. All right, now I'm gonna take my turning tube and I'm gonna go ahead and turn this inside out. Do you see how easy that is? It just goes right through. And it's inside out now. And then I'm gonna take the pointy edge and I'm gonna put it in and just kind of poke out the corners. Like that, okay. And now we want to see how long we want it to be on the bag. Once again, we're going to start at the top and I'm going to center it, of course. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pin that right at the top. Now what I'm doing is I've got it upside down so that I've got it running along the center of the white lace. And I see now where the edge is. So I'm gonna snip right above that edge with enough that I can fold it in and then stitch that down, okay? All right, do you see? I snipped probably about a ½ inch up because I wanted a little bit of leeway just in case the bag shifts around and I'm like, oh no, because it's better to have too much fabric than not enough fabric. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and turn this inside out, this little sleeve, just at that point. Look at that. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and stitch this on. Okay, so one final piece. I love a good Halloween collage, and I think it looks really cool when you are able to like collage with fabric. I have this fabric that's really cool, like vintagey looking fabric. I've got this little witch. She's got a little witch hat. She's standing on a jack-o'-lantern. And I thought it would be pretty cool to like, let me get up here so you can see. I thought it would be pretty cool to sort of collage this onto the side, like off to the side. I feel like if you put it in the center, it's too on the nose. So I'm gonna put it off to the side. So I'm gonna pin that down. And I know this is gonna be a real pain in the a-hole because I'm gonna go back to that sort of embroidery stitch and just stitch all around, and it's gonna suck. It really is, but it's gonna look great when it's done. So I'm gonna go ahead and pin that and sew that down, and then I'll show you the finished product. I stitched on our little collage lady, and I have to say, I think that was the most challenging part of doing this bag. She's a little choppy, but that's okay. I think, you know, I think overall it looks pretty good. So here it is all together. Isn't that fun? I love my little jack-o'-lantern. Well, here we are again, the end of another episode. And I'm so grateful to all of you for coming along with me on this strange, meandering journey. It honestly makes me feel a lot less alone in the world, knowing that you're all out there and that we all have this common ground. I hope this video inspired you in some way. I hope you pick up a great Gothic novel and you immerse yourself in the atmosphere of it. I hope that you experiment with interesting autumn scents that transport you to another place, that maybe you can do both of them at the same time and enhance the experience. Or maybe you just do some kind of spooky art project that makes you happy. But whatever you do, I hope you have a perfectly magical day, everyone. Bye for now.